All right. The purpose of this video is to continue on a previous video about basic part setup. This one's going to be another level deeper. We're going to be working on custom escutcheon setups. So this is something that will almost always come out of a need from an order. So of course, typically somebody might email you or you'll be working on an existing order, but in this case we're just going to go hunt one down and go from there. So remote desktop, production control, in the progress window, we're going to go to eGen hold. And this particular order is this one right here, Foxworth Decorative Hardware. This is something that Ben M is working on right now. And he needs a couple custom plates made for this one, so we're going to go take a look at it. So we're going to go back over to the team site. We're going to look in the Foxworth file for 972. So regular computer, we're going to go down to our team site, 2025 projects, go to Foxworth, and then 972. All right, go ahead and open up the spreadsheet. And we'll get into this a little bit more later, but we can see here we've got a couple highlighted boxes and looks like a note here about needing custom plates. So, you know, there's a couple questions here. Number one, how do we know that we need a custom plate? And then number two, you know, what do we need to do, right? Because this is a pretty vague question. So I'm going to unpack a lot of that here. Isn't necessarily something that needs to be done all the time, but I think it's great training and really good reference. So the first question is, how did we determine that? And that really comes from the catalog. So if we take a look at the catalog, and there's a couple versions in a couple different places, but J catalog, and then if you look at the 2025 door tech manual and price list, we can look at hardware by component. We're going to look at a couple of these sections, but let's look at hardware by component first. So I'm going to scroll down. Obviously by components, pretty self-explanatory. Gives a listing of all the different pieces in their respective groups, door knobs, door levers. I'm going to go down till we find the escutcheons. In there. Here we go. Look at that. Okay, so we are looking for part 21604. It looks like this particular customer is ordering that for all their escutcheon sets. So 21604 lives right here. Now in escutcheons we have really 6 standard plate sizes: large, medium 1, medium 2, small, narrow, and screen door. They are all used for different type functions, and there's some that are standard for type functions and some that are optional for type functions. You also notice there's a little star right here, and that is because this particular collection has the ability to be knurled, coined, diamond, or roped. So if we were doing, for example, this plate with a coined edge, it would be 216C04. That would be a 2x12 coin plate. This particular order, they're not ordering any knurling. It's just 21604. So they're going to get the profile just without the edge detail. So we need to go look at our M2 or 2x12 plate sizes because we need to understand what about this is custom. To do that, we're going to go up to the front of this section. We've already established this is 2x12. That's really what we need to remember, or M2. So if we just shoot up to the front of this escutcheon section, you will find this lovely chart, which kind of goes over our options here. And if I zoom in on this, you'll find the function code and then in bold will dictate the standard offering for that particular type function. So we've got a couple of them here. If we look at, we'll run down this list. So MEEN, Mortise Escutcheon Entry. You'll notice he's not notated that he needs anything custom, and that's because if we come back over here and we look at our MEENs, we'll see a standard offering, and then we also see an optional offering in 2x12 or an optional offering in 2x7. What this means is more than likely Ben has already gone through and looked at this, and he has found a part that exists that will work for him. So this customer is ordering non-standard, but it already exists under optional for this particular style. Now what we're working on is EPMP, or a Euro Profile Multipoint Patio. So let's take a look at that one. Now we'll see here EP, where is it? That's interesting. So this is actually a typo, but it would be this column right here because we're doing patio here. So what we'll see is our narrow 1.5 by 11 is standard for these, and 2x12s or medium 2s are considered optional. So it must be that a stock plate does not exist in this option, which makes sense, and we'll get into that. So that's what we're doing. Now the next thing we need to do is we're going to need to open up a couple different spreadsheets here, and we're going to need to figure out what we're going to do. So the first one that we are going to open is going to be, and again, this is one you're probably going to want to have pinned. Actually, I'll just pause right here. This is a great list. This is my pinned list. I would recommend
the Dollar General here is kind of nice.
just
the Dollar General market, so they actually have
finding
produce.
finding all these items, finding all these spreadsheets and pinning them in. We're going to pretty much use all of them at some point or another. But the one we want right now is going to be the Escutcheon Plate Program List. And then the next one that we want to open, I don't think I have this one pinned, is going to be on the team site. And then it's going to be under Engineering Shared Files. And it is the Door Hardware Function Code Guide. Let me go ahead and open that up. So this, the function guide, helps us to establish what types of part numbers we're looking for given a specific type function. So in this case, all of them should be in here, and you'll see there's usually notes and things like that on how these schedules should read, and we'll get into it later about adjusting schedules and correcting, basically entry errors or clarifying. So we're going to look for EPMPPT. That is, we look back on our order, EPMPPT. Okay. So what this is telling us right now is kind of how we're going to build this. So we're going to be looking for a 23 thousandths part number in either right or left, and that's a lever, which makes sense. On the interior, same thing, and then you'll see here 21,000 number, and it's going to end with an E, or it's going to have an E in it, and then for the exterior, and then on the interior we're looking for a 21 with a D. The rest of this we can kind of ignore. I'll say that the lock number is going to be very important for us here. That's going to help us dictate the configuration. So let's go ahead and jump back over here to our order. So 21604, we're looking for a C2. Now, where this kind of all ties together is in this Escutcheon Plate Program List. This listing right here is going to be how we're going to build out a custom part number if we need to. Also, you'll see here this abbreviation chart. So that letter that we were just talking about is how we subcategorize this particular group called escutcheons. So if we were doing U.S. entry exterior, that would be an A. An interior would be a B. In this case, we're doing a multi-point entry interior, which is the same as a patio interior, and then we're going to combine it with a passage exterior, which is, I'm sorry, we're combining it with, we're combining it with an E. So we could also combine it with a couple other things. We may here, we'll see. But yeah, this system here basically lists the methodology of how we've come up with all of this. So essentially, the plate size chart, if we go and we look for, let's say, a 2x12, like we're working on. So we'll find our 2x12 size, and then generally speaking, we'll find a listing of all the different profiles and then what the part number is for that given size. And the way that this works is the first two numbers, the 2-1 indicates that it's an escutcheon or 21 thousandths. The next number is going to indicate what the profile is. So the first profile is Jamestown, so those will all be 2-1-1s. Then when we look at Terrace will be 212, Hudson 213, Port Royal 214, Manners 215, Coin Rope Diamonds 216, and we also have Madison, which is 217. Then the next two numbers, 09 or 43 or whatever they might be, that's the number that's unique for that given size, and it's just sort of assigned. So that's the first part of the number. Then whatever that particular escutcheon does, that becomes the letter at the end of that. You know, a D, 21204D for a European multi-point interior. And then the last thing that we need to do is we need to assign it a program number. So the CNC machines can only store a 4-digit code as their program number. So this is essentially like almost like a UPC or a unique code that goes on the end. So in engineering here, we're really focused on the front part here, 21204D2394. That's interesting. Oh, that's a different one. Anyways, so that's telling us what it is. It's a 2x12 terrace European multi-point entry, and then really for the shop, they're looking at 2394. That's the number that matters for them. So at this point, we could dive right in and make a couple custom plate numbers, but one thing we usually want to do is we want to check and see if what we're looking for already exists and maybe Ben missed it. And then the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to try to figure out how exactly it is we're going to go about and make this custom part. So to do this, we're going to go take a look at our existing catalog of parts. So we're going to go 21604. Okay. And then so what I'm looking at here right now is I need to go look for 21604 plates. I know based on the hardware function guide that I need to find an E plate and a D plate. And then the other thing that matters when it comes to multi-points and a lot of other things is C2 specifically. So we are going to go to the J drive. We're going to come down to parts prints. We're going to go to the 21 thousandths, and then these are sub broken out, and then we're going to look at, we're going to look at the 21600s, and then we're going to go look at the 21604s. All right. So this is a C04. So that's not quite what we're looking for. Let's keep going down. Also, I don't think I saw any. There was an E, although it looks like it's set up for a 9100. See, like this one here says C2. That's going to be more like what we're looking for. So let's go look C's and then go down a little further. So here's the D's. So we're down 216D. I don't see any 4s. We go right from 2 to 10. So now we're going to go down to the R's. Again, 216 R02 to 10, so nothing there. We're going to keep going. Now we should start to see just the regular 2160s. All right, and again, we go from 602 right to 611. So there's nothing that already exists in this this grouping. Now, I'll say this. So now we know we're going to have to make something, right? And that makes sense because that's what Ben was looking for. The way we handle our escutcheons has changed recently. So escutcheons changed, and we used to store everything in these different groups. Now we use something that's called the stock plate program, and it lives in this standard plates folder. This is the place that you're going to want to go in order to find something to build off of. So, like we were looking at prior, the standard for this particular group is 1.5 by 11. So what I usually recommend whenever we do anything like this is to go find the standard stock plate file and then modify the overall size and add the profile. I find that that's a much safer, more consistent way to do this. Yes, there's 100 ways you can do this. I just prefer that method. Then we know we're working off the most recent information and the most recent spacings, right? Changing spacings can get a little bit, worrisome. Usually it's better just to change the size of the plate. So 1.5 by 11 stock plate. We're going to come up, we're going to back here where parts prints, escutcheons, standard plates. We're going to look at our 1.5 by 11s. And then, like we were talking about earlier, we need a D plate. Now, you'll see these are marked C1, C2. There's actually 6 configurations, but we know that C2 is the one that we're working on. So I'm just going to go ahead and open this up. This is obviously just the PDF. Just hang on to that for a minute. And then the other one that we know that we need is an E plate. And in this case, we want a C2 E plate. So we're going to go ahead and open that one up as well. Now what we're going to do is, what defines this as, let me back up, we're going to go over configurations as well for multi-points. So I'm going to just jump back over and grab another page out of the catalog. Forms and supplements. So when it comes to multi-point specifically, the multi-point is a little bit unique, but we do not provide the lock in multi-point. They come pre-built into the door. They're generally run from the bottom of the door to the top. And we've really pared down all the different manufacturers into 6 configurations. There's 2 European configurations, which we call those configuration 1 and 2, and by configuration we're really just looking at the particular spacings for the through bolts and the spacing between the lever and the cylinder. And then in American there's 4, so 3, 4, 5, and 6. And again, they're all a little bit different, and these holes are usually pre-drilled into the doors. So it's important that we can just line up and they can mount our hardware. And then this one is 6. Obviously there's customs for both, so customers will sometimes submit those, and then we'll have to make a custom escutcheon to match what they're doing. So this particular order, the customer had specified configuration 2, which is a 7 7/8 center to center for the spindles, and then 2 3/4 for the through bolts, and then 2 3/4 from the upper through bolt down to the lever, and then 92 millimeter or 3 5/8 from the lever to the center of the cylinder. And if we were to look at these and crunch these numbers, you'd find that this layout here matches that. So we want to maintain that layout, and we just want to modify the overall size of the escutcheon. As a general rule, in multi-point, we keep the midpoint between the through bolts as the midpoint of the escutcheon. And so that sometimes means that the distance between the midline of the escutcheon to the lever hole can change a little bit sometimes, but the symmetry here is the distance, really the distance from the edge of the escutcheon to the through bolt that it's, respectively closest to. When we do other types of escutcheons, like mortise lock escutcheons and things like that, we will change the through bolt locations on those, but we'll keep the distance from the center of the escutcheon to the center of the lever. That number will stay fixed, and the through bolts will change slightly. But today we're working on a multi-point. The distances, these numbers here, are all going to stay the same, respectively to each other, and we're just going to change the outside. The other thing you'll notice here is obviously there's no profile on this, so we're also going to have to go in and add our profile. But before we can do all that, we are going to need to establish what our new part number is. And I'm only going to do one of these, and then I'm going to leave you to do the other one. So I'm just going to I will do this one here. I'll do the interior escutcheon. So we know we need a 21604. It's going to be a D, and then because it's different from this plate, we're going to need a different 4-digit code. So in my escutcheon plate program, I can come in here, 21604D, and then this number here, 3892, is for the standard template plates. You don't have to do anything with that. Ignore that. What you're working on, whenever we're doing custom, we're using the custom number, which is this 2395. So that's our next number. So we're going to put in 2395. You can clearly see kind of what the methodology here is, right? It's going to be width, usually with a decimal place and 10, and then the length. And then what we do is we usually call out the profile, so you can call this no knurl or just knurl, doesn't really matter. We'll go with no knurl, and then we're going to put in the type function this goes with. So this is EPMP, and technically we call this an entry. It's a little bit messy. Patio is an entry with a passage on the outside, but we kind of follow what the letter is. So the letter here would tell us this is an EPMP-EN. Then for multi-points, or for a lot of them, we'll specify what lock they're for. So in this case, we're going to call this as a C2. And then this is going to be an interior plate. TB stands for through bolted, and then this is pocketed for a spring assist as well, so it's going to be an SA for spring assist. Now you'll notice the number at the top is still 2395. As soon as I put that number in my program number 2 chart right here, it's going to switch to the next number for 2396.
Yeah, right.
And then as you can see here, right, this is kind of just laying it out for us. European multi-point entry, interior, 2 by 12 by quarter. That's all good. Now we've got our part number, it's going to be 21604D-2395. We can go ahead and we can start to make this thing. So again, I'm going to run to, I'm on the J, I'm under parts prints, I'm in the SolidWorks section. I'm going to go to the 21000s. And like we talked about, really trying to usually start with a stock plate or standard plate program. So I'm going to come in there. Now, like we talked about earlier, for this particular type function, 1.5 by 11 is the standard. And then I am building a D plate for C2. So I'm going to open the part and drawing for that, which is the same one we have open, the PDF we have open, the 3850. So we're just going to open up a solid model for these.
Like I said, until there's word otherwise to say whatever. I mean, I'm not trying to rock the boat my first one.
All right. And then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and save this under our new part number. So we're going to go File, Save As. Again, like having the drawing open makes our life easier. Now, this is not going to be a standard plate. This is going to be a custom plate, so it needs to go in the custom section. So we're going to back up, so we're just under Parts Print SolidWorks 21000s. We're going to go down to our knurled plate section, open that up. Now you'll notice that this has a WS in the front of it. that's a complicated thing, but we're going to want to remove that when we when we save our custom plates. So this is going to become, I'm going to leave that stuff on the end. This is going to become 21604, 21604, and then this is D dash 2395, and it is a 2x12, no knurl, EPMPENC2 interior through bolted dash SA. Let me just confirm I got that right. 604D 2395. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then we're going to do the same thing for the print. Again, we're going to drop back to 21s under SolidWorks, come in here to our knurled section, start to put that number in. Oh, look, there it is. Wonderful. And you could do this a couple different ways. You could start with the side step escutcheon blank, and then you could just redraw the through bolts and everything and put those in. You know, I find this method quicker, and you'll see why here in a few minutes, but got that. Enter. So the first thing we're going to do, obviously, we're going to just enlarge this, and I'm going to kind of rip through this a little bit. Just going to change the overall of the base to 2x12. Okay, now we'll probably need to, that actually looks like it went pretty well. I'm just going to say we might need to move some of this stuff around. So this was all based off the center already. So we can kind of see here when we look at the drawing under this first cut extrude, we're based off the origin was put in the middle in this part, and then we're based off of that origin. So that didn't move when we changed the height and width. And then same thing for the through bolts. It looks like we're also picking that up off the origin. So we actually don't even have to do anything here. This is now a 2x12 plate. All we have to do now is put the profile on. So in order to find the profiles, I'm just going to save this real quick. In order to find the profiles that you need to cut, you are going to want to go to J and then parts prints, and then you're going to go to the 21000s, and you're going to go to, again, one of those groups. Well, actually, you know where we can go? We can go to standard plates, and we can go to profiles. And then this is a listing of all the profiles and the different edges, and we're looking for one of these 216s until we find the one that we're looking for. We're getting there. There we go. I'm just going to open this up.
We went back and forth several times on.
So here's that 21604 is in here, by the way. It should be in here. Maybe it's not. Looks like it's not. Anyways, this is the profile. This is the coin rope diamond profile that we're using. And it is a 1/8 by 1/8 inch profile, and it has a 1/16 of inch 90-degree radius in it. So that's pretty cut and dry. We're just going to go ahead and make that.
These are the appliance doesn't have to be regular screw. Typical screw is for a cabinet is number 8. But for appliance fills
Now, I'm a big geometric dimensioner. I really believe in the less total measurements you have, the better, especially if you've got relations. So, and some of this I know because I've obviously built this one a lot. Now, we could do like a horizontal relationship here. We could do a tangential relationship here. That's not really critical, but what we know is this is a full quarter round radius. And then because this is 1/8 of an inch by 1/8 of an inch, and this is a 1/16, all the rest of these are all 32nds of an inch, so we can just make them all the same.
Bigger than those?
Right, and then what we can do is we can set this, and when we do stuff like this, we do want to, generally speaking, carry it all the way out. That's just going to help us from getting any kind of rounding errors. So 2 measurements, I've got that done. If we were to check this, we'd see, and that's again going to be a driven, but there we're exactly 1/8, which is perfect. And I'm a lazy engineer, so we're just going to do a mirror feature off the center line.
This is one of our very first collections, and this is different more like what you're talking about.
Okay. And before I do my extruded cut, I'm going to exit this sketch, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this, and then I'm going to stick it in the other plane, and go ahead and I'm going to grab that thing,
And then these rods.
and I'm going to hide the other one just so I don't pick it up inadvertently, and then I'm just going to relocate this stuff. So I don't have to take the time to redraw it. Not that I spent a lot of time on this one, but some of these other profiles, ooh, that's kind of fun. Make that horizontal. Fix that in a minute. Big thing is we just want to get this thing back over here to the edge where we're headed and pin that baby into that corner. And then there we go, like the horizontal that time. So now we've got a solid black part. We're pinned up on the corner. We pinned our mirroring line to the origin, so we look our other side. We're good to go. Now we're just going to jump back into that other one. Again, 100 ways you can do this, I'm sure you know, but we're going to just do a through all both. Cut it on both sides, that's perfect, and then pick up our other one and do the same exact thing. I have observed, this is just something I've observed, that you usually have to toggle this cut to get it to work both ways. There it goes. Bam. Alright, so we are done. We took a 1.5 by 11 inch plate. We enlarged it. We did not have to move any holes because of the way this part was laid out originally, which was really, really nice. That's not always going to be the case. Then we profiled it. If we were doing coin, rope, or diamond, we wouldn't go through the process of putting that on here. We would just notate it on the print, so it would look just like this part. But yeah, we are ready to go to the print phase here. So I'm just going to save this thing. Jump over here to my print. Of course, the first thing that I'm going to do is change my part number on my print. 604D. 2395. I'm going to change my description.
That's why I left that there, because
I was about to ask you if you had anything that you thought maybe I should, I know there's a lot of stuff you said.
That's not what I wanted.
Probably die out or store with. If there's anything that you thought, like, besides that you thought maybe should be
I was
considered.
That's not what I wanted.
this is
Hang on.
What does it mean?
it's some sort of.
Yeah. So if you get the funnel, you got to press F6. Yeah.
Yeah, it clears it.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
So this part's made.
So anyways,
and,
I'm gonna change my
Yeah, yes, essentially.
description here.
Those Royals, one of our early ships, this is more traditional. The styles that we print out feature traditional, transitional, and
Okay. And then of course I'm the one drawing it, although I do need to change my date. Go edit my sheet format. Just change it to today's date. My tolerance stack is good. My address is good. I'm drawing it, so I'm not going to modify that. All right. And because of the way we built this, there is not a lot of measurements here that we need to change. If we'd gone through and drawn this from a blank plate with all these holes, put all these holes in, we'd have to be redimensioning and redrawing all this stuff. We also got kind of fortunate in that when we did that cut in both directions, we didn't lose our datums. Real quick on datums, you know, again, we follow pretty standard practices, right? So when it comes to rectangular work, like escutcheons, we're going to do the top surface is going to be our vertical datum, which we're going to ordinate dimension from, and then the leftmost surface is going to be our left datum point that we're going to ordinate from. So we're upper left, that's going to be our machining origin, and then everything is based off the top surface of that respective view. So in this case, these are all through all holes, but if we had a pocket here, we'd be measuring it off the top surface. And a good example of this is like in this drawing right here, even though technically this 1-inch counterbore is within the pocket, we're giving our depth measurement from the topmost surface. We're not going to stack that measurement. So same thing like here, this says the tap is 150 deep, but it's actually sitting, it actually starts at the bottom of a 04 deep pocket. So it's really only an 11 deep tap, but we dimension it off the topmost surface. So all I really have to do here is just move some stuff around and get it all to fit. Obviously we made that plate a little bit longer and a little bit wider. Should be pretty straightforward though. Nice, easy little project. Sometimes they're a little bit more complicated than this. This one went pretty well. So now I can save this, and then I can make it into a PDF. And again, our PDFs live in a different area than our SolidWorks files. They're still under parts prints. They're just on the top level here. Escutcheons, same thing. We're going to go down to this coin row diamond area. Go ahead and save this, baby. Now we can double check this just for fun. We're going to just double check these numbers. So 9.9375. I'm just subtracting 2 1/16 from that. I get 7.875. When I look at configuration 2, I should have 7.875. If I take 12 and I subtract 9.9375, I get 2 1/16. So I know that my through bolts are centered because I'm 2 1/16 to here. I'm going to take the lever number 4.8125 and subtract 2 1/16. I'm going to get 2.75. Like we said here, from this through bolt to our lever, 2.75. That's good. And then we could check either one of these, but right, I mean, A plus B plus C must equal D, so if A and C or A and B are right, then we know we're good to go. Let's go ahead and check maybe this measurement here, so 8.4345 minus 4.8125. So this number minus this number gives me 3.622, which when we look here is exactly what we should have, just 92 millimeters. So it's centered, it's good. I mean, we kind of already knew that because we didn't touch any of that, but just run through that for purposes of an exercise. This print's done, good to go. Now, of course, we need to go ahead and set it up in ERP. How we do that, again, is going to be very similar to the previous project. We're going to have to assign a UPC code, and then what we choose to copy this off of does not have to be the same thing we copied from in SolidWorks, right? What is easy to copy through in SolidWorks might be more difficult to copy from than it comes to ERP, but we'll take a look at it. So first we're going to open our UPC generator. Looks like Ben's in here. We know we're where he's at, so we're good here. We can go ahead and start typing. Now in the UPC generator and in ERP, we do have to put in the WS. So it's going to be WS21604D-2395. But we're not quite done yet. When it comes to escutcheons, we have an extra code we have to put on. It's kind of a leftover from previous methodologies, but in this case, we used to indicate belted plates and buffed plates, and we'll get into that with finishing details later, but just be on the safe side. Always run everything as -BF for buff. Can't really go wrong there. Add it to the table. And I'm going to grab that part number. So now I've jumped into the remote. I've jumped into ERP. I'm going to open up item, and I'm just going to put in the beginning of that part, that 21604 number. And at first you might think, well, maybe we want to copy one of these. Well, what this kind of comes down to is what does the bill look like of this particular part? And you'll find a lot of these have an existing part. When we do the stock plate program, we make all those blank plates first, the one we were looking at the drawing of, like this one right here, 21502D3850. This is the 3850 program. This is what you get. And then what we do is, and this is a slightly, I'll tell you what, we'll go like this. So if we looked at the 21602D3850, you'd see that it's using the 502D3850 as its blank material. And that would not work for us, obviously, because this is an existing plate and you can't add material to it. So we could use this and we could copy this part. If we wanted to, we could copy. Sometimes you can find something that's already, really, really close to what you're looking for. I don't see anything here that we really probably want to use. So we're just going to go ahead and, I don't like that. We're just going to go ahead and we're going to copy this one. We just need to be careful with what we're changing here. So I'm going to grab that number. I'm going to run ITASC. Preloaded the number for me. We're doing a 21604D-2395-BF. Let me just make sure I did that right. 2395, yes. Okay. So, again, item copy. We're going to put in the existing item in the first box. The second box is going to be the item we're creating. I press the little go button. Now, one thing I need to do here is I need to change both of these, right? Because I'm not going to make this out of this plate that's already been made. What I am going to make it out of, I could either make it out of raw material, which would be acceptable, or I could make it out of just a cut blank is what we would call it. And so those are going to be in the manner grouping, so they're going to be 215 numbers, and then usually it's whatever those last two digits of the code are. If you're doing like a square plate, it's going to be those. So in this case, we are going to have to switch 21502D-3850-BF. We're going to just switch that to 21504. Now the next one we're seeing CNC edge profiling. That only applies to the stock plate program. So we're going to switch profile. We're going to switch it to just mill. We're going to see, look at that. So there we go right there. 21504 is a 2x12 by quarter inch manner blank is what it's called. And then instead of doing profiling, we're doing more than just that. So we're actually going to be doing milling. So we come down here, we can see that both of those items exist, which is good. We don't want to be making either one of those new, that's a previous part. The only new item we're making is the one new part we're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and press create. We got one item record, one warehouse record. So I'm going to come in here to this, and then if I re-click this, you'll see there should be one more in there now, 21604D2395. We can just change right here what we're looking at, right? Instead, now we have a 3 by 12. All the rest of this holds true. Right here, this is just going to be a 2" by 12". It's still a machine room product, so we still need an apartment here. Let me go pick up my UPC code. Grab that UPC code we made earlier. Remember, we're on the main tab. Now we're going to jump to the unit tab, change the UPC code. All the rest of this, we can just leave it just the way it is. Again, we are making it, so WSB needs to be the vendor. Key here looks okay. It's brass, made in USA. For the profile tabs, I don't see any information, so I'm inclined to just leave it just the way it is. So we're good here. Let's go check the warehouse now. So the warehouse, again, we don't actually know what our standard cost is going to be, so we're going to zero that out. There's no pricing listed here. The location is already marked as dock, which is great. We don't have to change that. For purchasing, we want to make sure there's no mins and maxes present. There's, all this is all zeros. That's great. Again, WSB is going to be the vendor, and like we talked about earlier, the buy type within this warehouse is always M. So we're going to save that. Like we talked about previously, we can visit these other tabs, but there's really nothing here we need to worry about. So we can close the warehouse. Now, I could type it in here. I've already got the assembly open. You could type it in, the code we want, WS21604D, and pull it up. So there it is. Or we could come through the item tab here, and we could just press the assembly button at the bottom. Gets us the same place. And we just want to make sure we got our quantities right. So for this manner blank, right, we just need one blank to make one part. That's perfect. So you notice that the unit of measure here is in each. Our previous example, we were building out of raw materials. So the unit of measure was 1/16 of an inch. This is an already cut piece, so just one. And then for the milling, when in doubt, usually just set this at 300 seconds, which if I remember right is 5 minutes. Yeah, just set everything at, you can set everything at 5 minutes. There's a process on the back end that after this gets made, this number will get corrected, but we certainly know it's going to take us more than 30 seconds. So, and we can save that. So this part is now all set up. Now for this job, this particular job that we're working on, because both of the type functions are the same, it looks like they're just different handings. That plate we just made will cover this requirement right here for custom plates. And I'm going to leave it up to you to go ahead and do the same thing for this side right here. Now we don't have to put these, on a sales order. We don't have to do anything like that. That is the bill, the detailers portion, which we'll get into that. But for this video, that kind of concludes what we're working on.